I'm sure you felt the same way that I do. You felt that like no matter how much progress you made, that the world just continues to move the goalpost forward. Like you finally get ahead and you only find out that you're right back where you started, no matter how much work or effort that you put in. And there's a reason for that. It's not bad luck and it's not just burnout. It's actually a rule of nature. There's a theory, one so bold for its time that no scientific journal wanted to publish it, about why the moment you stop moving, you actually start to die. And the second that you get comfortable is the second someone hungrier is catching up to you. Why survival, whether in business, biology, or life, means running not once, but forever. And it's called the Red Queen hypothesis, and it explains why great companies fall, why hard-fought won advantages slip through your fingers, and why you're never really safe, no matter how far ahead you actually are. And in this episode, we'll talk about the eccentric scientist who gave us this theory, the marble analogy that explains extinction, and the story of Sears and how it went from retail god to ghost town. And to go along with it, the 5 brutal truths of what it takes to stay alive in a world that never stops moving. So if you've ever wondered why you feel like you're sprinting just the same place, this one is for you. Welcome to Novel Wisdom. I'm your host, Christian Straight. Now, in this first episode of its kind, it's the first one that I've done like this, so I figured I would at least introduce it to you before we get into it. Usually on this podcast, I'll read a book, take out my favorite highlights from it, and talk to you with it and share my takeaways. But there are things in books that are just so good that you just have to distill them into their own videos. And so for this episode, I wanted to talk to you about that. And the thing that we're talking about that I saw pop up in 2 books, The 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom and Same as Ever by Morgan Housel, is the Red Queen hypothesis. Leigh Van Valen wasn't your typical academic. He kind of looked like Einstein's weird cousin and thought like someone who never quite accepted the idea of settled science. In the 1970s, Van Valen came up with this evolutionary theory so strange and counterintuitive that no journal would actually publish it. So he did it himself. He created his own scientific journal called Evolutionary Theory and published it. His core idea was this: survival isn't about improvement, it's about persistence. He studied the fossil records and found that the probability of a species going extinct didn't actually decrease the longer it had survived. If you had lasted 1 million years, your odds of dying out the next year were the same if you only lasted 100 years. In other words, evolution isn't just about getting safer, it's about staying in the race. And I know that sounds kind of complicated, so I have a marble analogy that'll help you understand this. Now imagine a jar with 1,000 marbles. Every single year, you blindly remove 2% of them, then shake up the jar, rearrange the marbles again, and after 20 years, sure, some marbles will still be in the jar, but it's not because those marbles were better at surviving, they just hadn't been picked yet. And when we take a look at species, human evolution, business, life, relationships, whatever it is, we see this thing pop up again and again. Some survive a long time, and sometimes it's just because they're lucky enough not to get knocked out yet. And that's the terrifying part of Van Valen's theory. You actually never win the game, you just have to keep playing. Now here's where the idea of biology actually starts messing with business strategy and life itself in all aspects. In a world that's always changing, no advantage is ever safe. The second that you stop moving, someone hungrier is catching up. The second that you start believing you're untouchable is actually when you're in danger. And the only thing harder than gaining a competitive advantage is keeping one. It's the same with money. It's easier to gain $1 million than to keep that $1 million. And to bring this theory to life, I have a story about Sears that I think plays out so perfectly. So let's talk about Sears. If you were to write a movie script and needed a fictional company with the strongest competitive advantage imaginable, you would look at Sears in the 1970s and 1980s. It was the largest retailer in the world, and aside from merchandising, it also owned companies like Allstate, Discover Card, Dean Witter, Calder Bank. It didn't just sell you stocks, it insured your card, managed your investments, and helped you buy your house. And in 1983, the New York Times wrote, "No one has to tell you that you've come to the right place. The look of merchandising authority is complete and unmistakable." That's how dominant Sears was in the 70s and 80s. Even Merrill Lynch said that they would become, one day, Sears, Roebuck of the investment business. But then, it all crumbled. Income inequality split customers into either luxury goods or bargain shoppers. Sears sat awkwardly in the middle, which was shrinking. Meanwhile, Walmart and Target, leaner, hungrier, faster, started to dominate. And then by the 2000s, Sears was a ghost. One local store even hung up a sign that says, "Yes, we're open." A quiet plea to customers who'd stopped noticing that they even existed because people stopped shopping there. Their competitive advantage was gone, even though they had such a head or such a lead against everybody else. But here's the thing. Sears isn't really that unique. It's a common outcome that we see. From 1980 to 2014, nearly 40% of public companies lost all their of their value. Competitive advantages die, usually faster than we actually expect. And when we're talking about competitive advantages, Van Valen's Red Queen hypothesis theory, there's 5 things that you need to keep in mind. So how do we make sense of all this, and how do we understand it? That survival isn't just about winning and getting the best competitive advantage, but it's actually about understanding that you need to continue to play the game forever until you die. The first one is being right breeds dangerous confidence. Success often makes you think that you can't be wrong anymore, and that's usually when you start slipping. The second is that big companies have different problems than small ones. What got you here won't keep you here. Scaling creates new problems, and old strategies sometimes don't work at different levels of the game. The third is that people chase success to stop working, which is why they lose. Ironically, the drive that creates a competitive advantage is often lost once you have it. Once you finally reach your destination of retirement, or you get your $1 million, or you get your business scaled up to a certain revenue, if you stop playing that game that continues to evolve you and grow you, you eventually just die off. The fourth is that we have to understand that skills have an expiration date and they need to continue to evolve with the times. The world changes, but just because you were good at something yesterday doesn't mean that it will matter tomorrow. And lastly, the fifth lesson that I want to talk to you guys about is luck looks like skill in hindsight. Some companies or people were just in the right place at the right time. And you see this a lot with, let's say musicians who are one-hit wonders, or companies that grow into unicorns and then eventually die out. When that luck fades, it feels like decline, but really it was just a reversion to the mean. They were lucky. They were at the right place at the right time. And so as we wrap all this up and we think about it, the Red Queen hypothesis just isn't about evolution. It's about life, strategy, business, and the constant grind to stay relevant. It's like the lion and the gazelle. It doesn't matter how far ahead you were yesterday. When the morning comes, you better start running. Because in this game, running to stay in place is the rule, not the exception. And as always, I want to leave you with this quote. Will Durant put this perfectly on civilizations, but you can substitute civilizations for company, advantage, person, whatever you want. A great civilization is not conquered from without until it has destroyed itself from within.